There are 4 Atlantic islands in the Macronesia ecoregion: the Canary Islands, a Spanish archipelago, Cape Verde, an independent African nation, and 2 separate autonomous islands of Portugal, Azores and Madeira. This documentary covers all but the Canaries. Because there is a set of small Micronesian islands in the Pacific, some of which La Mancha Media has filmed, like our 2 series covering Guam, the Marshalls, Palau, the FSM, and the Marianas, many assume there must be a Macronesia, a large set of islands, somewhere in the world. But the word Macronesia has a completely different etymology and meaning from Macronesia, a word which does not exist. Taken from the ancient Greek word Macaronesia, mentioned in Homer's 8th century BC work, the Odyssey. It refers to a semi-legendary place known as the Isles of the Blessed, or the Fortunate Isles, a paradise reserved for special deities who were pure enough to gain entrance to the Elysian Fields. Some say the islands were a mythical place. Others say they were known. Today the islands are named Macaronesia in light of this Greek legend and word. Is the ancient Greek mythology true? Could these islands truly be the legendary Isles of the Blessed, the Greeks' Elysium, or even possibly the ancient city of Atlantis? We start our tour in the Azores, about 1,000 miles west of Gibraltar. Today, the biggest draw of the Azores is whale watching. It's currently one of the world's largest whale sanctuaries. There are some 20 different types of cetaceans here. We then went ashore on the main island of San Miguel in the capital city, Ponta Delgada, before heading out into the volcanic countryside.
To be about 5 times more immigrants outside of the Azores and inside. Yeah, so a lot of people immigrated. Now, of course, these 5 times more, it's already people from 2nd, 3rd, 4th generation, but still a lot of people, especially in Massachusetts area, Rhode Island, a lot in California, even a lot went to Hawaii. Okay, we're coming around the main square of the city. Just to our right side is the main church, the St. Sebastian Church. In front of us, you can see is the city hall. And we can see the famous monument here, the gates of the city. The 3 arches, which are not in their original place. They've already been moved a bit more to the side. And it's called the gates of the city because back then the ocean used to come all the way up until these arches. So this was the entrance to the city. Everything that came in through here.
So this was 2 separate islands before?
Yeah, so as for the formation of the islands, it was built in many different stages. During a large part of our island formation, this was actually 2 separate islands, having one of them here, the area of Setsidaj, the whole west side, and the other island being all of the eastern side. So this middle part is the most recent part to be formed on the island, roughly about 50,000 years ago, which sounds like a long time, but is actually the baby part of the island compared to the rest. A combination of many different smaller eruptions that managed to join the 2 islands and make it the one island of San Miguel. The islands are all completely volcanic, built out of many different eruptions, many different kinds of volcanoes. So we are here at the Fire Lake, one of the most beautiful and natural parts of the island. This is our youngest caldera, the youngest volcanic caldera, with beautiful blue-colored lake up top here. At the very back we can see the bay, or the crater, that was formed by the last eruption of this area in 1563, which pretty much the locals that came up here, they saw literally lava being exploded from inside of the lake. Therefore the name, the Fire Lake, Lagoa do Fogo.
Rebuilt this Land Rover?
Yes, my dad did all of the rebuilding of this Land Rover. He does the painting, he does the mechanics, he does all of the rebuilding. Yeah. He takes it very seriously. He's very picky about all of his works in the cars. and he loves this kind of work, so yeah. It's his job and a bit of his passion. So down here we are seeing the Furnas caldera. You can see the shape of the caldera all the way around. At certain points this used to be a tall peak before it collapsed, right? So with it collapsing, it forms the caldera, which is the big crater.
What's the definition of caldera?
So the only difference between crater and caldera is size. After it reaches about 1.5 kilometers of diameter, it passes from crater to caldera. What we do have a lot on the island is secondary volcanic activity, and we're going to be seeing a lot of it today, which pretty much is the volcanic fumaroles, the hot springs, the boiling muds. So this is one of our fumarolic camps. Around here is where a lot of the pressure from underground is being released. So this is actually good that it happens. It would be a problem, let's say, if it would stop releasing the pressure, then it could build up underground.
Yeah, that second part of the hole, it didn't even exist.
This is pretty much what we call the mouth of the volcano, where it's breathing through, releasing all of the pressure from underground. It's also one of our natural kitchens here. You can see all of the little hills over there. Those are the natural ovens. Those are where they put the pots in for about 6 to 8 hours. So it's all slow cooker, and all cooked with the steam. See, they put a lid on top, they cover it up. About 3 feet deep. There you go, there's a pot, and they wrap up the pot with a cloth, just to make sure nothing goes in. There's actually 2 in there. Some of the holes you can fit 2 or even 3 smaller pots. This one is from Terra Nostra. It's a hotel, and they also have a restaurant. They're bringing it here to their van and then driving it off to the restaurant. You never know what could happen here. It's a dormant volcano. It is pretty unpredictable. It's been quiet for about 400 years, but geologically speaking, that's nothing. So it could wake up at any moment, really. This is the calderas area. This is the biggest fumarolic camp of the island. In 1522, there was a very large earthquake that provoked a landslide. And this landslide pretty much covered up the entire capital at the time, above the town after the big catastrophe.
What is it again?
The Chapel of Our Lady of Peace, built to bring peace over the town after the big disaster.
So it was a 500-year-old chapel.
The chapel came after this. The original chapel is from the 1700s, even though now there's the staircase, which we'll be seeing in a few seconds. That was only built back in the 60s, so it's a lot more recent, the staircase, but the original chapel is from the 1700s. There you can start to see the beautiful chapel, full of hydrangeas covering it, and then there's the staircase up to it with about 110 steps. Every 10 steps you have the stages of the life of Christ, and then behind the chapel you have a few more of the stages. It looks dirty, but it's not dirty. It's actually iron. And because this one is bigger, it oxidates. The iron oxidates and makes it look orange.
Oh, yeah,
But the water is nice and warm. It's probably very close to 100 degrees Fahrenheit. So a nice temperature, nice hot spring. Yeah, they say when you go in for a swim, you come out 10 years younger. It's a treatment of beauty and health.
Do a lot of people bring their wives here and go, jump in, honey? So all around the mountains, there's a lot of these smaller lakes.
This here is Sete Cidades, the big caldera of Sete Cidades, which is called that because of the 7 separate craters inside of the one big caldera. In the center of all of this caldera, we have the town of Sete Cidades, a little town inside of a dormant volcano. also considered to be one of our 7 natural wonders of Portugal. The entire caldera with all of the lakes inside. A good idea you can get from here is that the smallest island of the Azores can actually fit inside of the caldera. Well, one of the things, like down here there's a tunnel, and they had to dig through the tunnel. As they were digging, they found a piece of cedar, which they sent it to be tested somewhere in Texas, I believe, actually. And it came back with a dating of about 5,000 years ago, which could have meant that there was a civilization here at the time. That would have been probably roughly the time of Atlantis. Well, Plato, he wrote about it 2,000 years ago, and supposedly it was a couple thousand years before his time. So it's a lost civilization that was so far ahead of its time, and was supposedly right in between the 2 big civilizations of the time, which would have been, let me say, the Egyptian area and the Mayan area, right? So in between, we are in the middle, literally in the middle of the Atlantic. So there's a lot of theories of what would have happened here before. It could have been they could have all disappeared by a massive volcano. It's still a big question mark as to what happened here before the Portuguese arrival. It could have been the Phoenician people that were here long before the Portuguese. For an example, there's some old columbariums that were found on some of the other islands, and one also recently on this island. Columbarium, so it's the way that the Phoenicians used to do a burial ceremony for the people that passed away. It's basically some caves which have a lot of holes in it, where they would put the ashes of the dead people.
They found those here?
Yes, they have found on some of the other islands, and just last year they actually found one on this island, far into the east side. A lot of proof leads us to believe that there was something going on here before, but maybe they would have left because we are too far away from any kind of mainland, and they wouldn't think it would be the ideal place to build up a civilization. I think they have found some very similar structures also in areas of Greece and Italy. Also around that area there are some old Genovese maps that date back to about 100 years before the Portuguese got here, which in the world map, these islands already exist. So supposedly the Portuguese were the first ones to discover these, but there's already older maps proving that they were not the first ones to arrive here. So a few years ago, one of the local fishermen off of Terceira Islands, as he was going out and exploring some of the seas, he noticed that some of the underwater formations looked a lot like pyramids. So I started to explore the area, and they came to find out that there was a lot of formations underwater that actually did seem like many pyramids, a whole group of pyramids which would have been too perfect to be naturally caused. But many people strongly believe that there are pyramids underwater off of the Terceira Islands.
Was the Azores the fabled Micronesian Isle of the Blessed, Elysium, or even Atlantis? Visiting here, I couldn't help but think of the ancient author Homer, who in the oldest known work of Western civilization, the Odyssey, described Macronesia. To the Elysian plain, where life is easiest for men, no snow is there, nor heavy storm, nor ever rain. But ever does the ocean send up blasts of a shrill blowing west wind that gives cooling to men. Homer may well have been describing the Azores, a land of perfect climate and blessedness. The next island on our tour of the Macronesia ecoregion is Cabo Verde, an African nation 350 miles off the coast of Senegal, Africa, Cabo Verde refers to the green color of the islands that Portuguese explorers saw upon their initial encounter here in 1456. However, for the past several years, the island has undergone a severe drought and greenery is hard to find. Our first excursion was to the old city, Cidade Velha, founded in 1462, the very first European settlement anywhere in the tropics. It's near the capital city of Praia on the main island of Santiago. Several ancient buildings still remain in the old city. In this image, you can see the ruins of the 1556 Sé Catholic Cathedral. And on this hill overlooking the old city is the 16th century Fort Real de São Felipe, built for protection against pirates. Cabo Verde was born in slavery. In the 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries, slaves were brought here from Africa and sold and shipped to the Americas and the Caribbean. Our local guide brought us to the Ballerino, named after a pillory in the center of the old city square, erected in 1520, where slaves were flogged and sometimes killed.
So my mom used to tell me she cannot just come here and stay like those children we can see here. Because when she comes, she feels the history. Do you know why? Our history is new. We had independence in 75. So this is the slave market. So anyone who comes here and remember about the past will feel what the slaves suffered in this place. So they used to put a chair here, and when you stand up to the chair, they will remove the chair and you just get down.
But over generations, Africans brought here as slaves broke free and fled into the mountains, forming their own farming communities, which harken back to their African roots. These ex-slaves were called Bajus. We visited a group of their descendants called Rebelados.
So we are in Rebelados community, okay? So that is new word, rebels plus art, because they paint, they do pottery and a lot of stuff. Let us see. So this is typical music instrument. So he got to play and I will improvise. Yeah. Let's go, let's rap, minta põe, minta canta, só sabe mico Richard, David na mic, não também só sabura, todo dia ali na Cabo Verde, no stress. Vai no vem, no canta reggae, vai no vem, canta reggae, Mr. David na camera, yeah! So you can see there is a lot of mermaid, all of them. Yeah, so with this tube, they make notes, okay?
The Rebelados, like most Cabo Verdeans, were Catholic. But in the 1940s, Vatican liturgical reforms were imposed around the world, including Cabo Verde. One particular group of Catholic Bajus, led by a charismatic man named Agostinho, rebelled against these reforms. He founded a spiritual movement that rejected modernism.
So what about their history? Why their name? Why do they call rebels? Because the Catholic Church used to bring different way of serving God. And Agostinho was the owner of the community. Agostinho said, no, I will not take this your way, okay? Because it's wrong. Like you are united with demons, Satan, this kind of stuff. So the Portuguese wanted to kill him, but what happened? He just escaped and he started to live in the mountains. So day by day, he just invited new people. With the time, they made a big community. So only now, you can see them with smartphone. But before, Agostinho forbid it. Okay? So today, they go to school, before not. So they cannot, before, they wouldn't mix with another people. They say you are contaminated. So now we gotta get inside and know how do they live. Yeah. So you can feel it, you know. It's
Much cooler
different.
in here.
Yeah, of course. So at night you have your peaceful way of resting, you know, okay? So they have their kitchen also, okay? This one before was forbid, but now it's allowed, you know?
Stoves?
Yeah, stoves, yes. I love this bed. Come. I used to come and have my rest here. When it rains, you will feel the water, you know, falling down. It's amazing. Yeah.
You mean the water comes through?
No, don't, never.
Oh, you mean you
only
just
hear
feel
the
it.
sound,
I
yeah.
see.
Hey, Tete! Oh! Ô, galera, tudo tranquilo? Solta aí, Manete. Yeah, beleza. Amor, aquele que você sorriu lá. Yeah, hey, come, cachupa. The two spendable. So this is the traditional food that we call cachupa. Me too. You know, you can see maize getting up. Oh, it's so hot. Abre la mas. And beans. So they have their animals. They used to grow up animals together. Today, my house will feed them. Tomorrow, your own. Unfortunately, I gotta tell you, this is the last rebels. He just changed his house, you know, not leaves anymore. So the new ones are changing.
Visiting their community brings one back in time to see how life was like in Cabo Verde just 50 years ago. Much different from the current bustle of city life in the capital Praia, where we headed next. Yet the Rebelados and the city dwellers are all Creoles, mixed European and African descendants.
So this is our port, the port of Praia. In Cape Verde, basically, São Vicente has the biggest port. We are not in São Vicente Island, we are in Santiago Island. But port of Praia is also getting day by day big and receiving a lot of cruiser ships. You can see just over there in this island also, Charles Darwin, he used to go there with his navigators, but today they have sold this place for Chinese to build a casino. So there is no Charles Darwin history there anymore. In Cape Verde, everybody is like mandatory. You should go to the military service. The canon, you know, is to the palace of the president. So what does it mean? Do they want to protect the president or do they want to shoot him? So right now, like a local people, we're gonna get inside our local and traditional market and we will taste the local vegetables and fruits. Let's go. So all those vegetables, we ourselves, we plant it in the north. Listen, we call it pinhão, this fruit, pinhão. And if you drink 3 times the juice of pinhão, but natural one, it will avoid cancer. It's proved, okay? So, ladies and gentlemen, let's drink pinhão juice. It's very, very good. Yeah, you know, this is garlic, okay? We gotta eat. It's healthful, you know? So basically, you know, she told me from her childhood until now, she used to come here every day. So she gotta work more, prepare, keep money for next year starting study, you know? She wanna be a lawyer. Yeah,
What?
lawyer.
A lawyer?
Yeah.
Okay.
So women in Cape Verde, we let women work. We go to the bar and we have local beer, you know? Let's go. You didn't see it? Come on, right. You know? So Cape Verde is different country, you know? Don't you never leave your women going to the club in Cape Verde alone, because she will start dancing this kind of music. So maybe, you know, you understand? Yeah, so basically, like nowadays, we are not getting married, married. We are not, men, we still avoiding this kind of things because a lot of, imagining, you are getting married and, 1 year later, you get separated. So for what?
Men sire a lot of children.
Yes.
I mean, the men usually have several children from different women.
Yes, in Cabo. Like, it's not that, in the same moment, you have like 5 women. No, mostly, I found a girl, we have a relationship, we have 1, 2 children, 2 months, we separated, and yeah, of course, you will get another one. More children, another one, more children coming. In the end of the day, you will be like my grandfather. He has 16 children. He's a man. So this is the most famous lady ever here. So if I need a pantalon, okay, I come here to negotiate with her. This is the second-hand market. So all is about business. They never lose.
Driving out of the capital into the countryside, we saw endless death of vegetation from lack of rain. It was difficult to imagine this place, a Micronesian island, an Isle of the Blessed, as referenced in Homer's Odyssey, or as described by the 1st century Greek Pliny the Elder, as an island that abounds in fruits and birds of every kind.
So people used to say Cape Verde. The meaning is green place. But today we are not in a Cape Verde, but is like gray and dry cape. So I have seen this place all green, all this valley long. So for me it's a pity in all my life long. I'm 26 years old. I have never seen this place green, so dry like this. So it means 23 years old back into time, we have never had this kind of
Drought?
Yes, drought. So it's really bad situation. So this is Jose Maria. He owned this place. So here we produce local rum that we call grogu in our dialect, Criollo. So Jose Maria lives here, and every day he wake up in the morning, he just go to see if the sugar cane is ready to ferment. If yes, he started and he produced grogu. This is his life daily. So the name of this structure is trapiche. So this is iron pure, and when we put sugar cane here, if we turn, it will turn, So of course, the liquid will get down, and there is this side that we put a bucket to pick it, okay? So after that, we will put that liquid to ferment, okay? And when it ferments, we will bring it here. Yeah. So this is a big pot, that we call alambic. Yeah. So what we do, we bring that liquid here and we just put fire. So when we put fire here, it will condensate. And when it condensates, inside this room, we have a place that we will see drops of the grog. Okay. Oh my God, man. It has no price, Yeah. Man, this is the best one. This one you cannot find in the markets. Yeah, he just produced for himself, Nowadays, the production is closed by the government because of there is new law, okay? But, the worst is the rain that almost 3 years we are without rain, so they're really suffering a lot because of the rain. The production depends on the rain season. Like if we have a lot of rain, the sugarcane will be a lot. So each year he is capable to produce 10,000 liters of grog.
His land is obviously bone dry.
Yeah. So this is the result of no rain. Yeah, so in the village of São Domingos, we call it São Domingos, okay? We are visiting Eco Center. It's the only one place in the island that you can meet and find a lot of animals, birds, and a lot of plants. This center, if for example an animal has some disease, some problem, you can bring them here and they will cure, give like health, and after give back to the nature. We have also condition to bring water from underground, just using windmill.
And this whole area is, all these plants are fed by that one windmill?
One windmill. It's an old technology, but it's still working and it is free. It will help nature. So we are about 1,000 meters over sea level. This is the natural park of Serra Malagueta. Yeah, so
That's the ocean?
Yeah, the ocean, the big one, and there is a small dam. You can see the water itself. Yeah, the water there, it's almost gone. So this area, how do the people live? They live with agriculture only, okay? There is no more source. So everybody, during the season of the rain, they just plant corn and they sell it. That's it.
Not too much corn right now, though, huh?
Yeah, because of the...
Cabo Verde is one of the most educated of all African countries. We then visited a country school that helps special needs children.
So this village calls Órgãos Pequeno. We are in the north of Santiago Island. So basically they're in the first year, okay? And of course, she's telling me that those students, they are happy, but the only one problem is the condition. But they have those two here, they have like health problem, and they cannot even speak, even move, and maybe she has some problem with the, I don't know, vein or muscles, you know.
How did she get this food?
She got a brother that put her here. Most of them comes from a place far away, and they must walk every day until arriving here. Yeah, man. Tudo bem? So this is Ju, the man who carried that small lady in his, backside, and he brings her to the school day by day. Okay? Yeah.
Tough legs.
Yeah, foi botar perna forte. The history of his parents is like, the father has almost 90 years old and the mom has 30, And, she's telling me really, things that make me feel sad, Yeah, like they don't have condition even to maintain food. So they live with the help of the community, It's very, painful. The thing they really want is to discover what is happening with them, because they have done a lot of exam, a lot of meeting with the doctor, but nothing done. So they want to discover which kind of diseases they have.
Despite its present difficulties, especially the extreme drought, Cabo Verde is one of the most developed and democratic nations in Africa. It ranks among the highest on lists of countries most free and stable. and when it rains, it is a cool green paradise growing out of a volcanic desert. A fitting mythical Greek fortunate isle of Macronesia. The Greek gods have looked kindly on this tiny African nation, but Zeus, the god of rain, has been absent for too long. The last island on our tour of the Micronesia ecoregion is Madeira, 400 miles off the coast of Morocco. We flew into the capital Funchal and landed at Cristiano Ronaldo International Airport, recently renamed after the island's world-famous soccer player. Since there is no flat land on the island, its short runway was built on pillars over steep sea cliffs.
So this is where we are now in the square of Cristiano Ronaldo. So Madeira has been the home of many stars and many important celebrities, but most recently the one that most of the world heard of is this person right over here, Cristiano Ronaldo, which has been doing a lot for the island, including building an hotel, a museum, and attracting lots of people to the island and giving a lot back to the community, and is sort of our national hero and our beloved hero on the island.
Our guide, like everyone here, is a proud Madeiran first and Portuguese second.
I know I'm Portuguese. Madeira belongs to Portugal, but before I'm Portuguese, I am Madeiran. The blood that flows in my vein is Madeiran blood, you know. So, and it was on the Greek mythology. Many times the islands of the Atlantic are referred into as the idyllic Atlantic islands. So it comes from the Greek mythology, and there are many proofs that there were many people here before the Portuguese itself.
Homer was the first to mention the Macronesian islands in his 8th century BC work, the Odyssey, referring to them as the mythical Isles of the Blessed, or Elysian Fields. But the island's worldwide fame came in 1419, when the Madeira archipelago became the first territorial discovery of the age of exploration. Christopher Columbus even moved here to hone his navigational skills prior to sailing to the New World, and 2019 marks Madeira's 6th century since its formal discovery.
Has been occupied by the Portuguese from 600 years now, but many people knew about these islands before the Portuguese. There are records of these islands from charts from the 10th century, the 13th century, 14th, 15th century, even before the Portuguese ever set foot here. The island was completely deserted until the first time that the Portuguese arrived, and only became important for the Portuguese when the trade ports on the north coast of Africa were being fought to get conquered by the Portuguese and the Spanish at the same time, and this could be a safe port for the troops to stop, refill, and refresh with fresh water, fresh fruit, stops to rest in order to get back to battle. So this Funchal became the capital city of the island, as the bigger bay could support more and more ships for all the trade that was being done. This became the most important port on the 16th, 17th, and 18th century, because all the ships departing, firstly to Africa, then to India, later on to all the New World, Brazil and America, were all stopping here on the way in and on the way back from and to Europe.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah, this is it. So the guys come on the back to steer it. You see, they come on to steer it. This was once the first public mean of transportation of Madeira, for helping down to move the people that will live all the way up here, as most of the hotels and rehabilitation hotels were all the way up here in Monte as well. When people needed to go down to Funchal very quickly, they will just slide down to one of these hills in one of those wicker baskets. And this part here, where we are now, this is our courthouse, and in front of us, it's the city hall, the old palace of Esmeraldas, one of the most influential families on Madeira during the quarter of the 17th century. And right here on your right side is the Jesuit church. The Jesuit church, until the 18th century, on the end of the 18th century, was the biggest building on Madeira.
One of the world's most historic and legendary hotels is also here, Reed's Palace. First opened in 1891. Its guests have included kings and queens, princesses, writers, and others. Winston Churchill came here in 1950 to rest, paint, and work on his books. While here, he surprised everyone by humorlessly assuming the duties of a waiter and pouring a vintage bottle of 1792 Madeira wine to his guests. Madeira wine dates back to the age of exploration, when grapevines were brought here from Greece in the 15th century. Their wine became hugely popular worldwide as Madeira became the center of the transatlantic trade. Ships provisioned here after leaving Europe on the way to the New World. It was so popular in the New World that the founders of America toasted the signing of the Declaration of Independence on July 4th, 1776, with Madeira wine. Thomas Jefferson even attempted to grow the beloved vine in Monticello, and George Washington, a daily connoisseur, ordered a toast with Madeira wine for his, the nation's first, presidential inauguration.
You see these vineyards, guys? In this vineyard, guys, you don't do anything with machinery. Everything needs to be done by hand. Tudo bem?
Hello. Hello.
My Uncle Josiah.
This is the famous levadas. The water comes from the north of Madeira. Then we put the water by irrigation, not.
It's not automatic irrigation.
Automatic
It's
irrigation.
done one line at a time. Working on these fields, it's a full-time job. What my uncle is doing now is actually what is the next season on the grape vineyards. So now you have to go around on the vineyards and by hand pick and see where there's going to be a bunch of grapes growing. As you can see right over here, there's going to be a bunch of grapes that will be growing, yeah? So you need to remove the leaves from around it so you can get sun and get better ripen. And for the Madeira wine, you need to use very ripened grapes so you can have a big level of sugar and produce a better alcohol for the drink. This is all tied by hand. Every little branch, you have to decide where you want the vineyard to spread so they don't overlap, and that way they will take each other's space, and the human chooses where he wants the vineyard to spread on. All these farms are fertilized naturally as well with chicken manure that is brought up, and when the gates of the water are open and the water flows, they are put the chicken manure inside and it flows with the water. So the water coming down, you have here a blockage that you will block, and you will leave the water going all the way to the end of that line. And once that is ready, it's going to be this one, then you pass to this one, then you pass to that one, to that one, to that one. So it's one job done, one at a time. Not to say that there's no insecticides used, because there's no insect that will eat up your crop. We don't need to use herbicides as well, because all these weeds are used as well for you to feed your animals. So it's all taken by hand. And these spaces under are used to plant other stuff as well. So that's why you will not use other chemicals. So maybe if you use a chemical for the potatoes, could harm the vineyards, and that's why there's no chemicals used. So all this has to be done in a very labor-intensive manner with lots of hard work involved. Looking for. So many of them, they actually dry up.
This one is gone.
Where they dried up. She's dead. So that's why it keeps on renewing with new branches all the time. So this is a constant renovation vineyards. But this one, look, it's about 40 years, but it's getting to the end of his life, but it's still producing. All this grape that you are seeing right here, Tinta Negra or Negra Mole.
I produce between 20 and 30,000 kilos. Depends. This year,
So you get paid once a year.
I get paid once a year. I get paid once a year, yes.
How is this year? Is this good a year?
This year is good. We have a good weather. I hope I'm hoping a good production.
This is all yours?
Yeah, that piece is there and here too.
These are yours down here?
No, here, this,
Oh, here.
this way.
And how many generations of your family has worked?
Oh, my grandfather, my grandfather, my father.
So now we'll be descending now Ribeiro Freio. This is already the heart of the Laurisilva forest.
This Laurisilva forest has existed on this island for at least 1.8 million years and is today a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
This is the pride of Madeira. This flower is an endemic species. And it's the echium, it's an endemic species of the island. And it's the pride of Madeira that is at bloom right now. It's one of the many species that compose our Laurisilva forest. So, yes. So this is the Nuns Valley, this little parish that is built inside this huge crater that many people believe that it was formed by volcanic formation, but the official is that it was actually caused by erosion on the island. But the origin of this land, getting that name, was due to all this land that you get to see around here used to be the land that belonged to the first monastery that was built in the island, the monastery of Santa Clara. This village was once a very remote place, very, very remote.
The Nuns Valley, as all of Madeira, is historically home to hundreds of species of birds. Today, many of the birds are under threat. We met with a non-profit trying to help preserve them.
These clips, as I told you before, in this area we have the breeding colonies of several species of seabirds. Actually, in this area we can find Cory shearwater and Madeira storm petrel. So SPEA, it's a non-profit organization for birds conservation and habitats preservation. And we have 3,000 members in Portugal. This is our magazine that we give to our 3 times a year with information about several projects that we develop in Madeira, in Azores, and also in the mainland. In the last years, our work have been focused on seabirds and in one particular threat to seabirds, the light pollution. The light should be always directed to the ground, so birds, when they are flying above, they won't see the spot of the light. Took these lights off because this is an area where we don't have visitors. It's a very important place for seabirds because, as you can see, there is lots of sea cliffs around us, and it would be very important to don't have this kind of lights here. Every year, around 300 seabirds are saved within this company. Our main funding is from European projects, but sometimes we face some problems because we don't have regional donors that can help us to maintain our mission, that is to preserve the population of birds, their habitats, but also an important work with the children with environmental awareness.
Birds are abundant in Madeira, as in all of Macronesia. The first-century philosopher and naturalist, Pliny the Elder, wrote in his Natural History that Macronesia abounds in fruits and birds of every kind. Another first-century writer, the Greek historian Plutarch, also described a bountiful Macronesia as islands in the Atlantic off the coast of Africa, where the air is never extreme, which of itself and without labor bears all pleasant fruits to their happy dwellers. Therefore, a firm belief has made its way that here are the Elysian Fields and the adobe of the blessed, of which Homer sang. After visiting here, I have no doubt that the ancient Greeks, in fact, were describing some of the islands we visited in Macronesia, that Homer was prophetic, and that Plutarch and Pliny the Elder were correct in describing these wonderful islands off the coast of Europe and Africa. Perhaps, too, the lost city of Atlantis lies within the Macronesia ecoregion, on the bottom of the ocean floor.